Elon Musk, 79-godišnji biznismen iz Južne Afrike, inženjer elektrotehnike i otac milijardera Ilona Muska, boravi u Bosni i Hercegovini i on je naš današnji gost. Gospodine Musk, dobar vam dan i hvala vam što ste pristali da govorite za televiziju Hayat.
Pleasure.
Gospodine Musk, evo već nekoliko dana boravite u Bosni i Hercegovini, u Sarajevu ste, ako se ne varam, već 2 dana. Kako se osjećate ovdje kod nas u Bosni i Hercegovini i u Sarajevu?
It's wonderful. I'm very surprised when I came here. I wasn't really quite sure what to expect, but I'm very pleasantly surprised, especially coming through the hills, you know, where we drove down through the mountains and to see this incredibly beautiful city nestled in this valley. It's just so beautiful. And yeah, it's exquisite. It's so nice. And the people are so nice and so friendly, and children everywhere, mothers everywhere. So it's rather, you look at it and you say, wow, this is a nice way to live. Yeah.
Da li ste imali priliku evo da nešto čujete o našoj historiji grada Sarajeva, eventualno da probate neka možda tradicionalna jela bosanska?
Yeah. Yes, we've had a lot of food. The food, I mean, is really very good. It's, you know, it's some very similar food that I'm used to eating in a country where we have a lot of farming and so on. I live mostly in South Africa, and otherwise I'm in Texas. So it's very good. It's very comparable to living in Texas or South Africa in terms of the amount of meat I've been served, but in very good quality, you know. So yes, no, I can't think of anything that I haven't seen here that I didn't like. It's very likable place.
Kako se Bosna i Hercegovina našla na listi zemalja koji ste odlučili posjetiti?
I'm an engineer, consulting engineer, and I've been going to various countries over a lot of years, and especially the UAE, you know, the United Arab Emirates. It's a very enlightened government, and we have been looking at all sorts of engineering projects, data centers, solar panel systems, water supplies, etc., etc., etc. And one of the things that came up during our visits to the UAE was the need to start a study in a science center, a new science center that would focus on humanity being able to use gravity for its own purposes. You know, to use gravity for our purposes to escape the Earth. And of course that leads on to space-time travel. And then the idea spread that if we had such a science center, we should focus especially on the mathematics of fusion. And then earlier this year, when this started to take form in the UAE, we had people from all over the world, you know, California, London, and so forth, asking us, particularly California, to please include in such a science center a study of longevity, which was something quite new to me. And so I've since, in the last 6 months, learned all about longevity, you know, and that is the human lifespan. And I've learned that the longevity scientists are quite convinced that the human lifespan will extend to 120 years. And yeah, so I've been working with the people who, in fact, mapped the first genome in California, and of course it's very big in China, and in fact everywhere now I discover that it's being looked at. But they said, let's include that. And the interesting thing about the study on longevity is they want to throw money at it. They're very keen to put money into that study. So that's quite helpful, really. And yeah, so I was in the UAE, and we were having discussions along these lines. The UAE offered us a building. They offered us several buildings, but we eventually saw a building that suited our purposes. It's a 3-story long building with parking, and we expect to draw geeky sort of scientists from all over the world, not conventional scientists. We need people like Tesla, Nikola Tesla. You know, we're looking for his sons or his nephews to come, you know. And you understand what I mean, of course.
Yes.
And then I met Bosnian people that I at first. You know, they said how I became very good friends with a group of people from Bosnia, and they said to me I should consider coming to look at Bosnia, and that was months ago. That was last year. So I said, well, yes, I'll try. So every month this year we've sort of planned this month, next month, next month, next month, And then finally, I was going to come here at the beginning of this month, July, and that was unfortunately cancelled because of all difficulties that were going on, you know, with flights because of the trouble in Iran and so forth. And then during this month, the Liechtenstein family invited me to come to Austria. So I went to Austria, and then they heard I was in Austria, the Bosnian family, friends rather, and they said, well, you're in Austria, you could just, takes 1 hour to get here. So I said, okay, I can come. Then I came here on Sunday, and from there, and I've been here since then. And yeah, so it's been very interesting to see this place and to actually realize that this is a very potentially a good place to have such a science center. It's conceivable because one of the important things is the cost of living is much better than a place like, you know, Dubai. Mm-hmm. And you also have a more than, one doesn't want to say it's better here or better there, but you do have a more receptive type of person here to this idea, you know. It's not just Muslim or just, you know, Jewish or just this. It's very diverse. So in many ways, we need to have a place, this is important, for such a science center to study gravity, to study space-time travel. These are strange concepts to people maybe. They weren't so strange 100 years ago. 100 years ago, nearly all the major mathematicians up to about 1925, from 1900, from Einstein's discoveries onwards to about 1925, all the major mathematicians in the world were advocating a study of gravity and space-time travel. But for some reason it fell away after about 1925. But now we must get back to that. Just to add, if you go to see a movie or you go and see on television, they show you vehicles moving up and down in the air and going up there and going up to the space station. Well, that's just, that's never going to happen unless they presumed in the films that we've learned about gravity, you know. And so that's not going to happen unless we actually put our heads down, get the right people together, make an intense study, and it's going to be very hard, but to find an answer to these things. We have all the, we have many scientific papers mm-hmm. on the subject written 100 years ago. So, for example, the actual mathematician who turned Einstein's special relativity observations that he made into mathematics was a man called Minkowski, a mathematician. So he took Einstein's observations of special relativity and converted it into mathematics and arrived at the phrase E equals mc squared. You probably know that phrase, energy is mass times the speed of light squared. And that was a very big breakthrough, because prior to Einstein's thinking on the subject, prior to 1905, if you went to university anywhere in the world, didn't matter where you went, Germany, anywhere, England, you were taught that the sun is a lump of coal in the sky, coal, and it's burning up there. And if you were studying for a Bachelor of Science degree, they said, what's the sun made of? You said coal. You get marked for that. You get marks. But of course, the sun's not a lump of coal. But nobody could understand what the sun is. Nobody could understand up to 1905. And along comes a guy who had a second-class physics degree, that's Einstein, couldn't get a job as a lecturer. The only job he could get is as a clerk in a patent office, which gave him a lot of spare time to think. And he came up with these concepts, physical concepts. He's a physicist, he wasn't a mathematician. And he had to go to a mathematician to help him put this into maths, and then came up with, I'm just giving you this as an mm-hmm. example of what happens when you have the right minds in the right place, you know? And of course one could talk a lot about Tesla in the same way. But so we need to start such an institute or science center that is driven by private enterprise, not an institution that's mm-hmm. Government of any kind, because no progress is made when it's you know, not for private gain. Unfortunately, it is private gain that drives people. And also in this institute, if people in this science center, the people we get, if they make discoveries, they will be rewarded accordingly, not with a fake watch and a piece of paper, but properly, you know. So it's the opportunity for these geeks to become millionaires, you might say. And my son Elon did that with SpaceX, particularly with SpaceX, where, and to a certain extent with Tesla, but Tesla's a public company. But with SpaceX, he brought geeks together, and they were told that if you come up with the right answers, you get equity in SpaceX. You're one of the owners. And the result is they don't go home at night. They don't go home on weekends, if you know what I mean. They work. And look at the result. The only viable launch facility into space in the world right now is SpaceX, you know.
Bili ste, upravo ste došli sa sastanka iz Privredne komore Federacije Bosne i Hercegovine. Da li ste nešto eventualno uspjeli da dogovorite kada je riječ evo upravo o ulaganjima, u otvaranju instituta u Bosni i Hercegovini?
No, I've only been here a few days, so but again, a person doesn't need years to see what's what. In a few days, it's been possible to see, wait, this is a potential, serious potential for such a place. Because, as I said earlier, because of the diversity, because of the enthusiasm of the people, you don't have to tell somebody things twice here. They seem to grasp it right away. And so the Bosnian people that I've met in Dubai and UAE and so on, they kept saying to me, come here, and you will see, you know. And they were right. So it wasn't like I just came here. For months now they've been saying, please come and see, you see. So yeah, it's and my response is, after a few days, we must consider this, you know, we must consider this as a possibility. Because we're looking, there would be a lot of money involved, and the thing is that if the institute or the science center is successful, the value of the success is immeasurable. It cannot be measured. If such knowledge was in the hands of one country, for example, that country would be the most powerful country in the world, overnight. Do you understand? They would outpace everybody instantly overnight. So it's very serious that it should be not in the hands of a government, but rather in the hands of private enterprise who would want to see it, any information or any spin-offs or any knowledge that we gain is available and shared and to everybody, you know.
Evo, spomenuli ste i svog sina Ilona, vi ste inženjer i poduzetnik, Ilon je otišao daleko, otišao je u svemir, globalna energetika. Kako vi gledate na te zapravo razmjere njegovih ambicija i da li ste ikada sa njim raspravljali o tome koliko je previše?
No, too much ambition. No. We're a weird sort of family, you know. We go. Maybe we're not like the people here that I've met. We go for things, you know. We don't say we're tired or, you know, we have zest for things, you know. So no, nothing's ever been too much. I must say that over the years, you know, I have two sons, by the way, Kimball and Elon. Kimball's the younger one. They don't do things in small measure. Kimball, as part owner, one of the major shareholders of a large food company, has 3,500 food outlets and 108 big restaurants. And he uses a jet to get to them all, you know. So I mean, nothing small there. He's also half shareholder of SpaceX. Elon, on the other hand, is somebody who would come to me and say, I want to start a bank. You know, this was back in the 90s. And I said, oh, that's interesting. Well, what do you want to do? And he said, I'm going to start this bank because if we do transactions, it will only cost a fraction of a cent. It won't cost any money for people to do transactions. So I said, well, that's a good idea. Let's do that. And he started the bank, and that became PayPal, you know. And he wanted to call it X Bank in the beginning. but because he bought the name X for, the guy wanted $1 million for it, but he paid $600,000 for this X, and he paid to someone who'd paid $39 for it originally, and so he started a bank, and then after the bank, he said, I think I'm going to launch rockets. I said, yeah, it's a good idea. Let's do that, you know. So we are not. My daughter, for example, their sister, she started in the film industry. So she worked for Universal Studios, and her idea was that one day she will make her own studio. And she did. And so for a long time now, she has owned Passionflix, which is like Netflix. And it shows romance movies, mostly aimed at women. And you subscribe to it like Netflix. She has huge studios in Atlanta, you know, and she's made hundreds of, or dozens and dozens of full-length films. So we tend to do things like that. I mean, even this institute that I'm talking about is a little way out, you know, it's a little way out. But to us, it's not way out. It's very important to do it. We see it as already, in my head, it's already there. You know.
Imala bi još mnogo pitanja za vas, ali rekli su mi da morate na aerodrom, da žurite, da letite van Bosne i Hercegovine. Za kraj, voljela bih da čujem kakve utiske nosite sa sobom i evo da li ćete upravo i svome sinu, koji je nekako simbol modernog doba, spomenuti Bosnu i Hercegovinu kao možda zemlju za ulaganje, za pokretanje biznisa ili eventualno zemlju koju bi možda samo trebao posjetiti.
Oh yes, of course. No, I would immediately tell them, I wouldn't say, you know, invest in Bosnia. I'd tell them I've been to Bosnia. It's wonderful. It's so beautiful. People are so smart and full of life. It's such a surprise, I would tell them, to see this place. And, you know, that's the sort of thing I would say to them. And then I would also, you know, when I started with the idea of a science institute to study gravity, I mentioned it at a meeting with the Sheikh of Dubai, you know, in UAE rather, in Abu Dhabi actually. And it took 3 weeks, because the newspapers jumped on it, and it took 3 weeks for my son, who was at the time in San Francisco, to phone me, because that's where his ex is, you know, to phone me and say, what's the story about a science institute, a science center to study gravity? And I said, he said, I'm not involved. I mean, he's not involved. He said, I said, no, it's me. He said, oh, is it you, Dad? Okay, fine. You know, let me know how it goes. So I'm hoping in time, I have told him, in my opinion, rockets are nice, but they are not the way to go to planets. They're good for Earth orbit, but to get to the planets like Mars, we need a different way. We need to use space-time travel, where you go instantly, like they do in the movies, you know.
Okay.
And he's very interested in that. And obviously, the type of money we're looking at to such an institute would be a lot of money. So we would like to see from people like him $1 billion. Well, not necessarily put him under such pressure, but we have already been offered by people in London, you know, money like that. And especially for the longevity side. And of course, any place that has such a center will be in the news a lot. There should be a lot of almost weekly news about this or that. So it would really, to a large extent, if it came here to Sarajevo, it would be on the news, put Sarajevo on the map quite a lot, if you know what I mean, to the world, you know, on a you know, news basis, you know, this and that.
Drago nam je zbog toga. Hvala vam mnogo za izdvojeno vrijeme za gostovanje na televiziji Hayat. Eto, nadamo se sljedećeg puta kada budete dolazili da ćete povesti i sina sa vama i da ćemo možda imati priliku da razgovaramo zajedno s obojicom. Hvala vam za izdvojeno vrijeme.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.